Upstairs footsteps. You ever live in one of those old apartment buildings where the walls feel thinner than the air itself? You can hear arguments, laughter, and sometimes the things that aren't supposed to have voices. That was my building. Cracked plaster, humming radiators, the smell of mildew in the stairwell like the place had been sweating secrets for years. And then there was Mr. Kearns. He lived right above me, third floor, apartment 3B. Retired school teacher, I think. Or maybe he just said that. Always wore the same brown cardigan, always shuffled in slippers that whispered across the floorboards like he was pacing through his own head. I used to time his walks, not because I wanted to, but because you could not notice. Step, step, pause, step. Same rhythm every night, right around 11 p.m., like clockwork. He wasn't the friendly type. I said hi once on the stairs. He looked through me like I was fog. Just muttered something under his breath about keeping it down, even though I hadn't said another word. Then, one morning, there was silence. Not the kind that comes when people leave, the kind that hangs in the air like it's listening for something. A couple hours later, the paramedics showed up. I watched them carry him out in a zipped-up bag, his slippers peeking out the bottom. Heart attack, they said. Quick and clean. That night, I turned in early. Thought maybe I'd finally sleep through without the sound of his pacing overhead. But sometime around 11 p.m., I woke up. Step, step, pause, step. The same pattern, the same weight in the boards. And I remember lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my skin prickling like static, thinking, who's walking in a dead man's shoes? And that's when the story really began. At first, I tried to ignore it, told myself it was just the pipes cooling, or maybe I was hearing my own footsteps echoing somehow. But then the steps started matching me. If I crossed the living room, they crossed above. If I stopped, they stopped. One night I snapped, grabbed a broom and banged on the ceiling until plaster dust snowed down into my hair. And for a long second, silence. Then, 3 deliberate knocks, spaced like a sentence. I didn't breathe until my lungs hurt. I told the landlord. He swore 3B was sealed, keys taped inside an envelope, signature across the flap. He even showed me the date. Still, the pacing continued, every night at 12:03 like clockwork. I set alarms, I set traps, flour on the floorboards. Nothing changed but me. Sleep frayed, food turned to chalk, coffee turned to mud. I started talking to the ceiling the way a believer talks to a door. On the 3rd week, I recorded the noise. Headphones on, volume up. What came through wasn't steps. It was breathing between boards. I played it for my neighbor, Lisa, the one with the cactus army and the too loud laugh. She heard nothing. She looked at me like mold. That night, the light bulb in my hallway stuttered, brightened, and popped. The glass burned a small moon onto my forearm. The footsteps didn't pause. I pushed my ear to the ceiling until I could hear the grain. Something shifted right above me, slow as a smile. Then it scraped forward. The landlord changed the lock anyway. New deadbolt, new chain, receipt on my door like a confession. The steps came right on time. I started counting with them. 1, 2, pause, 3. I matched my pulse to theirs and still couldn't get ahead of the next beat. A stain bloomed on my ceiling above the couch, a dark oval like a wet thumbprint. I touched it. My finger came away cold as pennies, and the idea started clawing, the way a cat tries a shut door. What if it wasn't above me at all? What if it was beside me, thin as paper? What if the building had 2 skins and something walked between them? What if all it needed was for me to listen long enough to open? So I set a chair under the hatch and waited, recorder on, knife in hand, shaking. I couldn't take it anymore. The footsteps, the whispers that weren't words, the sense that the air itself was breathing around me. So one night I went upstairs. The landlord's sealed envelope trembled in my hand, the paper oily with sweat. But when I reached the top of the stairs, the door to 3B wasn't locked. It stood slightly open, just enough to exhale a slow, stale breath of air that smelled like rot and old heat. It creaked wider before I even touched it. Inside, everything looked off. Not abandoned, frozen. The same couch as mine, the same rug. Even the same crooked photo of my mother by the window. Except everything was gray with dust, edges blurred, like the world had stopped remembering itself. I stepped forward, leaving tracks in the powder that coated the floorboards. My own apartment was staring back at me through a funhouse lens. "Hello," I called out, voice swallowed by the stillness. No answer. just that faint creak, creak, creak of footsteps behind me. I spun around, heart in my throat, nothing but the empty hallway. The air hummed like a live wire. Then I turned toward the window, and that's when I saw him. No, not him. Me, standing in the reflection, clear as day, smiling, wearing my clothes, today's clothes. But when I moved, he didn't. He just stood there, grin widening like a split in glass. I lifted my hand. He didn't mirror me. He lifted the other. The dust on the walls began to tremble. My reflection, no, the thing in the glass, took a slow step forward, pressing its palm flat against the inside of the window. And then the glass rippled. I stumbled back, tripping over a chair that wasn't where it should be. The air grew heavy, my ears popping like I dived underwater. The footsteps above me started again, but this time they were all around. Then he spoke. My voice, but not quite right, stretched, wet, too deep. You opened it. I felt something pull inside my chest, a suction, a gravity. My reflection's grin widened until it split his face. I screamed, reached for the doorway, but the door slammed shut. And the last thing I saw before the world inverted was his hand reaching through the glass, and mine reaching back. The air felt thick, like I was breathing through syrup. Every inhale dragged, every exhale came too slow. My reflection stepped closer, eyes hollow but burning as though someone had lit a match behind the glass. He raised his hand, palm to palm with mine, just a sheet of trembling air between us. For a heartbeat, the window rippled like a pond swallowing sunlight, and then it wasn't glass anymore. It was skin. A sound cracked through my head, sharp as bone snapping underwater, and suddenly the floor tilted. The world blinked. When I opened my eyes, I was standing by the window, looking out. At first, it didn't register. Everything looked the same. The couch, the rug, the crooked photo. But the air felt wrong, thinner, colder, like oxygen drained through a sieve. And then I saw him, saw me, moving down the stairs, heading toward my apartment below. He didn't look back. I pounded the window, screamed, but no sound came out. Just fog, pressing against the glass before fading into nothing. That's when it hit me. I wasn't watching through the reflection anymore. I was inside it, trapped. The room on my side was colorless, edges smeared like an old photograph soaked in bleach. Dust hung in the air but never fell. The clock on the wall was frozen at 12:03. The second hand twitched once, then stopped. I turned toward the hallway, but it just stretched, longer, darker, bending away from sense. There was no door anymore, only mirrors. I pressed my face to the glass again. Down below, the other me, the one who'd walked out of the mirror, was sitting on my couch, smiling faintly, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Then he looked up, directly at me, and he winked. A knock echoed from somewhere behind me, then another. 3 deliberate knocks, the same rhythm I'd heard for weeks. It wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from inside the walls. I turned slowly, dread unspooling through every nerve. In the distance, through the haze of mirrored corridors, I saw shapes moving, dim human outlines pacing back and forth, step, step, pause, step. Other reflections, other trades. And I knew then what Mr. Kearns had meant to warn me of too late. You don't live under the footsteps. You just haven't been replaced yet. The footsteps continue. If you ever move into an old building, listen carefully at night, because sometimes the quiet isn't empty. Sometimes it's waiting. And if you hear footsteps above you, steady, patient, tracing the same path again and again, it might not be rats, or pipes, or herbs, or dreams leaking through the drywall. It might just be me, still pacing, bedroom to kitchen, kitchen to window, over and over, 12:03 on an endless loop. There's no time here, just the echo of it. I've tried screaming, pounding, clawing the walls until my nails peeled back. Nothing answers but the sound of my own steps stitched into the fabric of the floor. Down below, my other self lives my life like a borrowed suit. I watch him sometimes, when the glass clears, when the air gets thin enough for the world to bleed through. He smiles when people speak to him. He goes to work. He laughs in all the right places. But sometimes, just sometimes, he stops, mid-step, and looks at the ceiling, right above the couch. And I can tell he hears me. He doesn't move, doesn't breathe, just stands there listening. And I swear for a split second our hearts beat together, mine in the mirror, his in the flesh. That's when I knock, 3 times, not to scare him, not anymore, just to remind him that I'm still here, waiting, because sooner or later every building groans, every ceiling cracks, and someone curious, someone tired or lonely or just bored will bang back, And when they do, when the rhythm syncs perfectly, another trade will happen. Another version of me will walk free. So if you ever move into an old building, don't listen too hard. Don't answer what you don't understand, because the footsteps you hear might not be a ghost at all. They might be your reflection trying to find its way home. Bedroom to kitchen, kitchen to window, step, step, pause, step, waiting for someone to bang on the ceiling so I can come back down. Fade out to silence. Then 3 faint knocks. If this story kept you up tonight, give it a like. It really helps the channel grow and reach more listeners like you. Subscribe for daily horror stories and share this one with someone who loves a good chill before bed. Thanks for watching, and remember, there's another story waiting for you on your screen right now. I'll see you back here tomorrow if you're still awake. The garden gift. You ever have a neighbor who's too nice? Yeah, like fresh baked pie on your doorstep kind of nice. That was my new neighbor, Miss Haverly. Moved in just after the spring thaw, when the ground still bled with meltwater and the trees hadn't yet remembered how to be green. Sweet lady, probably in her 60s, with a gray braid that hung like a rope over her shoulder. Her voice was soft, her laugh like the flutter of paper. The kind of person who could hand you poison ivy and make you thank her for the bouquet. Her house sat 2 doors down from mine, an old Victorian that leaned a little too far to the left, as if it was tired from keeping all its secrets. But the garden, God, that garden was something else. It stretched behind her house like a green ocean, thick and wild, pulsing with color. Rows of tomatoes so red they looked painted. Corn that brushed her second-story windows. Zucchinis the size of small dogs. The air around her place smelled like rain and rot and something sweet that didn't belong. Every morning, she'd leave a basket by my door. Fresh vegetables, still damp, still warm from the soil. Sometimes the roots twitched just a little, like they were reluctant to be gone. I told myself it was my imagination. I even teased her once, said she must have magic in her fingers. She smiled at that, not the polite kind. The kind that makes you feel like you've stepped too close to the edge of something deep. Everything that grows, she said, takes something from somewhere else. That line stuck in my head, though I didn't know why at the time. Then one morning, before dawn, I found a tomato on my step. Big, red, perfect. Except for the bite mark. Small, human maybe. Low, hushed tone. That was the first morning I didn't eat what she gave me. I started paying attention after that. Couldn't help it. Something about Miss Haverly's garden had shifted, from charming to hungry. She was always out there. Day, night, drizzle, shine. It didn't matter. I'd see her bent over the dirt like it was whispering secrets just for her. Sometimes she'd hum, low, tuneless, like the kind of song you'd hum to a baby you didn't want to wake. And then there was the talking. I thought I was hearing things at first, but no. She talked to the plants. "You've done well," she'd murmur, "almost ready." Her tone wasn't sweet either. It was reverent, like she was praying. One night, sleep wouldn't come. My mind was a restless animal pacing. So I did what I shouldn't have. I looked out the window. The moon was high, silvering the garden into something unreal, and there she was, Miss Haverly, in her nightgown, barefoot, her braid undone and hanging like a shadow. She was digging, slow, deliberate strokes, and whispering something I couldn't quite catch. Then I did. Names. She was saying names. I froze. Just stood there with my breath locked tight in my throat. Names don't belong in gardens. Not like that. I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe she was just, I don't know, reciting something. A prayer, maybe. But the next day, she came to the fence, all smiles and small talk, and told me her soil was special. Said it nourished whatever the earth reclaimed. That word, reclaimed, stuck in my skull like a splinter. The next morning, another basket waited on my step. Fresh carrots, long and twisted, still dusted with earth. But between them, half buried like it didn't want to be found, was a ring. Gold, dented, crusted with dirt. I picked it up and the inside caught the light. There was an engraving. To Ruth with love. I almost dropped it, because Ruth wasn't some stranger. She was the woman who used to live in Miss Haverly's house. The one who just disappeared. No for sale sign, no moving truck, no goodbye. Just gone. I stared at that ring until my hands started to shake. Then I did something stupid. I looked back at the garden, and I swear to you, one of the sunflowers turned to face me. So I called the police. told them something wasn't right, that my neighbor was burying something out there. My voice shook the whole time. They didn't take it too seriously until I mentioned the ring, the missing woman. That got their attention. They came that night. Two officers, young, polite, the kind of men who think nothing truly bad ever happens in quiet towns. They knocked on her door, 3 solid raps that echoed through the street. No answer. They called her name. Still nothing. One of them said he'd check around back. I stayed at my window, my heart punching through my ribs. The flashlight beam slid across her yard like searching eyes. And that's when I saw it. The soil moved, not like wind, not like rain. It shifted, slow, rhythmic, breathing. The cops froze, their lights jittering across the ground. Then one of them shouted, a short, strangled sound, and in the next heartbeat, he was gone. Just gone. No scream, no struggle. 1 second he was there, the next, the earth swallowed him whole. The other officer ran, calling his partner's name, digging at the dirt with his hands. The ground bubbled around him, dark and wet. I swear to God, something reached up, thin, root-like, and gripped his wrist. I didn't think. I just ran outside, screaming Miss Haverly's name. She was already there, standing barefoot in the middle of that monstrous garden. Her nightgown was soaked through, clinging to her like a shroud. Her eyes, dear God, her eyes were white, no pupils, no color, just blank, shining marble. She looked at me, calm as still water, and said, "The earth gives back what it takes." Her voice wasn't hers anymore. It came from underneath. Then she pressed both hands into the soil. The entire yard shuddered like something vast had turned over beneath it. Roots tore through the ground, writhing, snapping fence posts like toothpicks. I stumbled back as the earth split open, revealing faces, faces half formed in the dirt, gasping for air that wouldn't come. And right there, beneath the moon, her garden grew. The corn shot taller, the flowers erupted like wounds, the air thick with the smell of blood and mulch. Everything went still. And Miss Haverly sank, slowly, into the soil she loved so damn much. By sunrise, she and the garden were gone, vanished. No smoke, no debris, not even a broken fence post to prove there'd ever been life there. Just smooth, flat ground, packed hard and pale, like glass cooled too quickly. You could have skated across it. The cops came back at dawn, wide-eyed, pale. They combed through the yard with shovels, scanners, metal detectors, anything that made them feel useful. But there was nothing. No bodies, no roots, not even the gold ring. Just silence, thick, heavy silence that clung to everything like a film. They questioned me, of course, took notes, whispered to each other when they thought I couldn't hear. I told them what I saw, told them about the earth moving, about the way the soil breathed, about the faces. You could see the pity bloom behind their eyes, the quiet assumption that grief had fried my circuits. After an hour, they stopped writing things down. After 2, they packed up and left. One of them, an older detective with tired eyes, told me I should get some rest. I tried. God, I tried. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing there, barefoot, her hands pressed to the dirt. And underneath that image, a sound. That deep, slow exhale, like the ground itself was waiting. For 3 nights, nothing happened. The yard stayed empty, too empty. No birds landed there. No worms surfaced after rain. It was just still. Then, on the 4th morning, I woke to a noise. Soft, rhythmic tapping, like someone knocking on glass. I went to the window. That's when I saw it. Right where her garden had been, the soil had changed color, darker, wetter. And there at the center was a single handprint, pressed deep into the earth. I went outside. The air was heavy, almost metallic. I crouched beside the mark, tracing it with shaking fingers. It wasn't hers. Too large, too wide. It was mine. I don't remember pressing it there. I don't remember touching that soil again. But as I stood, a cold wind blew through the yard, and the ground beneath the handprint shifted, just once, like something breathing, slow and steady, waiting for me to come closer. Now, every morning, there's a basket by my door again. Fresh vegetables, warm, dew still clinging to the skin. Sometimes I tell myself someone's playing a cruel joke, that maybe some kid's sneaking around to get a rise out of me. But deep down, I know better. They're hers. The tomatoes gleam like little hearts, pulsing faintly in the dawn light. The carrots are shaped almost like fingers now, long jointed, delicate. And every time I touch one, the dirt hums beneath my skin. I stopped calling the cops. They wouldn't believe me, and I'm not sure I want them to. Because somewhere between the silence and the waiting, I've started to understand. When I sleep, I dream of her garden, alive again, stretching endlessly under a red sky. I hear her voice, soft and patient, whispering those same strange names. Only now, they don't sound like names at all. They sound like promises. Last night, I recognized one. It was mine. That's when I knew it. She isn't gone. Not really. The earth didn't take her. It changed her. And now she's changing me too. Every whisper, every seed that sprouts in my dreams, it's all part of something bigger. Something that breathes beneath us, waiting for more to be. I can feel it under the floorboards now, under the house, under me. Growing, calling. And soon, I think the earth will reclaim me too. Pause. Soft wind sound. Faint rustle like soil shifting. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If this story gave you chills or maybe made you look twice at your garden, go ahead and like this video. It helps more than you think. Subscribe for daily stories that dig deep under your skin, and share this one with someone who loves a good scare or needs one. There's another story waiting for you right now. See it on your screen? Go ahead, click it. I'll be here tomorrow. Same place, same hour. The shared wall. After my divorce, I needed silence. Not peace, silence. Peace asks for reflection. Silence just doesn't talk back. So I found a small duplex on the edge of town. Cheap, a little crooked, like it had been holding its breath for years. The realtor said the other half was empty. No neighbors, she smiled, handing me the keys. Not since the last tenant moved out. That sounded perfect. I moved in on a Tuesday. Gray sky, stale air, the kind that makes you believe the world's paused just for you. The place smelled like dust and lemon cleaner, which to me meant possibility. I unpacked only the essentials, a mattress, a coffee maker, and the TV remote. I didn't need more, but that first night I heard her laugh. Through the wall, thin as paper, came a soft, lilting chuckle. Not loud, not menacing, just familiar. Too familiar. It was the same laugh my ex-wife had, that half-suppressed sound she made when she didn't want me to know she found something funny. I froze in bed, staring at the wall, listening. Then came the humming. Low, rhythmic, almost sweet. A tune I knew by heart, a lullaby she used to hum when she couldn't sleep. I hadn't heard it in years. At first, I thought it was memory, my mind clawing at old ghosts. Divorce does that to you. It leaves echoes. But the next night, the same sound came. 10 o'clock sharp, the laugh, the humming. By the third night, it wasn't just sound. I could feel it, the faint vibration through the wall, like someone was leaning against it, breathing in sync with me. And when I pressed my palm to the plaster, something on the other side pressed back. For 2 nights, the wall stayed quiet. No laughter, no humming, no soft footsteps tracing the floorboards, just dead air. The kind that hums in your ears when your mind starts inventing noise to fill the void. I told myself I missed it. Not her. It, the sound, the presence, the illusion of another life breathing beside me. But on the third night, I woke to something new. Not humming this time, whispering. A woman's voice, low and steady, muttering words I couldn't catch. I pressed my ear to the wall. The whisper stopped and then started again, closer, like she'd leaned in too. I said, "Hello?" No answer. Just the faint drag of fingernails along the plaster. That sound stuck under my skin like a splinter. The next morning, I marched around to the other side of the duplex. The curtains were drawn. The lock rusted over. The mailbox stuffed with flyers dated 2 years ago. Dust on the windows, empty, my ass. I called the realtor again. She sighed, said she'd come by to check. She didn't. By the weekend, I'd convinced myself it was all in my head, a symptom of loneliness that sounded like a haunting. Until I found the note. It was slid under my door sometime between midnight and dawn. A single page torn from an old notebook. In shaky handwriting it read, "Stop knocking, you'll wake her." I didn't sleep that night. Every creak felt intentional. Every whisper in the dark felt aimed at me. The following evening, I set my phone to record and placed it by the wall before bed. At 10:03, the humming started again. Louder this time, and layered. One voice humming, another sobbing. When I replayed the recording the next morning, I heard something that hadn't come through the wall before. A third sound. A man's voice, mine, whispering back in sync. That's when I realized something horrifying. The recording hadn't picked up through the wall. The timestamp said 10:03 p.m. But I hadn't pressed record until 10:07. Whatever was on that tape had started before I hit play. before I even lifted my hand from the phone. I stood there, watching those faint handprints pulse in the lamplight, one after another, appearing like breath fog on cold glass. Smaller hands first, then larger ones. The wall looked alive, shifting beneath the paint, as if something was trying to remember how to crawl. I yelled out, because fear makes you stupid like that. "Who's there?" No answer, just a slow drag across the wall from inside, fingers tracing the outline of where my bed had been. That's when my phone lit up on the dresser. It was playing the voice memo I'd recorded the night before, but I hadn't touched it. The recording played loud this time, my voice whispering, "Don't leave me here." Then her laugh. Then something else. A second whisper, layered beneath the static. "You promise forever." I grabbed the phone, but it slipped from my hand and hit the floor. The screen cracked, and behind me, the wall groaned. A deep, splitting sound, like drywall being pried apart from the inside. I turned just in time to see a crack run straight down the center. A shadow bled through it, black, fluid, slow. I wanted to run. God, I should have run. But there was something in that voice, familiar, pleading, the same tone she used the night she left, or the night I made her leave. The wall convulsed, and from that black seam, a hand broke through, gray, trembling, coated in dust and something wet. Then another hand, and then her face, half-formed, half decayed, but hers. Her eyes rolled toward me like she'd been searching the dark for years and finally found light. "Why'd you stop listening?" she whispered. I backed away, choking on my own breath. Her body pushed through the gap, shoulder, arm, torso, each movement cracking the wall open wider. The house shuddered. I bolted for the door, but the knob wouldn't turn. Behind me, the humming started again, louder, deeper, like an entire choir underground. And then, from the woods outside, a chorus of voices answered. When I looked back one last time, the wall had gone smooth again. No cracks, no stains. Just a single whisper slipping through the air. "Now you live on my side." By the fifth night, I gave up pretending to sleep. I just sat in the dark, staring at the wall that used to hum, waiting, listening. The house had gone still again, too still, like it was holding its breath for something to begin. At 10:03, right on schedule, the air shifted. Not sound this time, pressure, that heavy, invisible weight you feel when someone's standing too close behind you. The lamp flickered, and faintly across the plaster, the handprints reappeared. Only this time, they didn't stay in place. They started moving, dragging down toward the floor, smearing the paint like wet clay. I whispered her name before I realized it, half a plea, half a test. The humming stopped instantly, and from somewhere beneath the floorboards, the voice answered, faint and strained, "You remembered." I froze. The sound didn't come from the wall anymore. It came from under me. The boards beneath my feet groaned. A low wooden moan, like something shifting in the crawl space. Then, 3 knocks, slow, measured, directly below where I stood. That was enough. I grabbed my keys, my phone, didn't even put on shoes. Ran out into the cold night, the kind that gnaws at your lungs. From the driveway, I looked back at the duplex. Her side, supposedly empty, had a faint yellow glow leaking through the window. Curtains moving, silhouettes pacing. I called the realtor again, voice shaking. She sounded confused, said she was inside the property right now. "Mr. Lane, I'm standing in the other unit. It's completely gutted. No power, no furniture, no lights." But while she spoke, I could still see that warm flicker through the window. And something paused at the glass. A shape, still, watching. That's when the line went dead. No static, no click, just gone. I stood there until dawn, waiting for the lights to fade. They never did. When the sun rose, both windows, hers and mine, were blackened from the inside. Not painted, burned. And that night, even after I left, the humming started again. Soft, patient, following me through the static of the car radio, like the house had learned how to travel. I've stopped moving from place to place, stopped running, stopped pretending silence means peace. Now I understand, silence just makes room for what you tried to bury. Some nights I sit by the wall with the lights off, coffee cooling beside me, listening to the hum bleed through the plaster. It doesn't frighten me anymore. It feels familiar, like breathing in sync with a ghost. Maybe that's what she wanted all along. Not forgiveness, not revenge, just a voice to echo hers. The longer I stay, the more the house changes. The walls seem softer now, like they inhale and exhale with me. Sometimes when I speak out loud, I hear a whisper finish my sentence. Sometimes I wake up with dust on my hands, same shade as the wall. I told myself I'd leave again, find another place, another town. But each time I pack a bag, I hear her hum that lullaby, the one she rewrote for me. The warning, the promise, and I sit back down. A few weeks ago, a new couple came to tour the duplex. Young, smiling, holding hands like they hadn't yet learned the cost of love. The husband ran his hand along the shared wall and said, "Feel solid, good bones." His wife smiled and added, "Quiet too." I should have said something. I wanted to, but the wall behind me gave a faint, contented sigh, like approval. And when the man laughed, it echoed mine so perfectly that I realized the house wasn't empty anymore. That night, the humming returned. Not one voice, two, hers and mine, tangled together in the drywall, looping endlessly like an old record no one can shut off. So if you ever move somewhere that feels too still, too quiet, too perfect, remember, silence is never truly empty. Sometimes it's just waiting for a familiar sound to answer back. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to The Shared Wall. If it left a chill in your bones, give the video a like. It helps others find our stories. Subscribe for more tales every night, and share this one with someone who loves the dark side of ordinary life. There's another story waiting on your screen. I'll see you back tomorrow, if the walls let you sleep.